Hello and welcome back to Something Z, and welcome to What If Naruto at the One Tails Part 3. Last time on the What If, Team 7 finished the Land of Waves mission, but during the final fight, Naruto released a bit of the One Tails' chakra, and in the process killed Haku. And when the fight was done, Kakashi put an extra seal onto Naruto, making it harder for the One Tails to take control of him. And also Team 7 just passed the first phase of the chunin exams. So now that that's out of the way, let's jump into the video in 3, 2, 1. So we begin this what if where the last one left off. So the beginning were just told that they passed the first phase of the exams, but before they were able to celebrate, a window bursts open, and glass goes everywhere. And when the examinees heard this, they looked to see where the sound came from, and when they did, they saw a woman who told them that she was their next examiner, and she told them when and where the next exams will take place. And when she was done talking, she jumped out of the already broken window. So now we skip to the next day, and when Anko believed that all the examinees were there, she began to explain the rules of the Force of Death, and this time Naruto didn't interrupt her, so Naruto doesn't get his scratch on his cheek. And when she was done explaining, she passed out one of 2 scrolls to every team. And when they were ready, Team 7 was released into the forest. And after half an hour, Naruto needed to go pee, so he split off from the rest of the group. And when Naruto came back, Team 7 began to talk about a strategy. But while they were talking, Naruto asked for the scroll, since he could protect it. And after some thinking, Sasuke decided to give Naruto the scroll. But before he actually handed it to him, Naruto came out of a bush. And when Sasuke saw the other one, he retracted his hand as fast as he could, and he put the scroll back into his bag. And wanting to figure out who was the real one, the two Narutos stood next to each other. But before Sasuke even says anything, he throws a kunai at each Naruto, which would have killed them if it hit. And seeing this, one of the Narutos jumped out of the way, while the other one moved the sand from their container, and they created a wall of sand, which protected them from the attack. And seeing this, they were able to tell which of the Narutos was a fake. And seeing that he was revealed, the fake Naruto covered himself in smoke. And when the smoke disappeared, it was revealed he was a shinobi from the Hidden Sound. And seeing this, Team 7 go to attack. And in response, the shinobi created a group of clones, which began to surround the main one. And before any of Team 7's attack hit, the shinobi sunk into the ground. And when he did, he destroyed all the clones before Team 7 was able to find out the secret behind the clones. And after a couple of minutes of trying to find the shinobi, the 3 give up. And not wanting this to happen again, they decided to come up with a password. And when they finished coming up with one, a strong gust of wind appeared. And seeing this, Naruto tried to create a wall of sand. But after a couple of seconds, Naruto got blown away with Sasuke and Sakura. And when the wind was gone, all 3 were separated. And after a couple of minutes, Sasuke and Sakura were able to find each other. And when they met, Sasuke pointed a kunai at Sakura, and he asked for the password. And when she gave it to him, he put his kunai back into his bag. And after a couple of minutes, Naruto jumped from a tree and he landed in front of the two. And when Sasuke saw this, he didn't even ask Naruto a question, and he threw a kunai aimed at Naruto's chest. But before it hit, Naruto was able to grab it by the handle. And seeing this, Sasuke was able to tell that this Naruto was a fake. So he told Sakura to get behind him. And hearing this, the Naruto began to laugh. And after a couple of seconds, he got surrounded by smoke. And when the smoke was gone, the identity of the Naruto was revealed. It was a shinobi from the hidden grass. The shinobi then grabbed a scroll from their bag, and he held it out in his hand. And after a couple of seconds, Schwar in one gulp swallowed the scroll whole. And when it was gone, Schwar told the two that the only way for them to get his scroll was by killing him. Then he showed the two visions of their deaths via kunai. And when the vision ended, the two were paralyzed with fear. And getting bored after a couple of seconds, Schwar threw a kunai aimed at their heads. But right before the kunais hit them, Sasuke was able to grab a kunai from his bag, and he stabbed himself in the leg, and by focusing on the pain, Sasuke was able to move again. And with this, Sasuke pushed him and Sakura out of the way. Then he grabbed her and he tried to run away. So now we jump back a couple of minutes, so Naruto just landed, and when he did, he was dazed. And before he could orient himself, a snake appeared behind Naruto and he tried to bite him. But right before the snake made contact, sand shot out of Naruto's container, and the sand formed a pillar in the snake's mouth, making it unable to bite him. And after a minute, Naruto was able to get back to normal. And when he turned around, he saw the snake trying to get him. And seeing this, he got rid of the pillar in the snake's mouth, and he turned all the sand into shurikens and kunais. And he began to barrage the snake with attacks, and after a couple of minutes, the snake was dead. And when it died, Naruto returned all the sand back into his container. He then began to try to think of where his two teammates were. And after a couple of seconds, Naruto began to run where he believed his teammates were. So now we jump back to Sasuke and Sakura. And after a couple of minutes, Sasuke finally decides to give up, since no matter how hard he tries, he couldn't escape Schwar, who was now riding a giant snake. So he then waits for Schwar, and after a couple of seconds, Schwar and the snake appeared behind some trees. And when they were face to face, Sasuke pulled out a scroll from his bag, and he gave Schwar a deal, which was if they give him the scroll, then he would have to leave them alone. But before Schwar could even respond, the 3 of them heard shouting from above, and when they look up, They see Naruto shouting, asking why Sasuke is giving up their scroll so easily. Then Naruto jumped down from where he was standing, and when he landed, he grabbed the scroll that was in Sasuke's hand, and he put it into his own bag. He then ran at Schwar head on, and while he was running, he launched a group of shurikens made out of sand at the snake, which Schwar was able to avoid, but the snake wasn't. And one of the shurikens hit the snake in one of its eyes, which made it begin to flail around, and eventually it fell down a couple of layers, making it eye level to Sasuke. And when it saw Sasuke, it tried to bite him, but when it went for a bite, Naruto jumped in the way of the attack, and he moved his sand so it wrapped around the snake's mouth, making it unable to open it fully. Naruto then grabbed Sasuke, and he jumped a level above the snake, and when they were secure, Naruto moved the sand that was around the snake's mouth, and he moved the sand back into his container. Naruto then jumped back to the two, and he began to fight them using his sand to protect him, but after some fighting, Naruto got hit multiple times, and eventually the snake was able to wrap around Naruto. But Naruto seeing this, he turned his sand into a kunai, and he began to stab the snake's tail that was wrapped around him, and after a couple of seconds, the snake weakened its grip because of the pain, and seeing that the snake was not able to capture Naruto, Schwar decided to do it himself, so he began to run down the snake, and he went for Naruto, but luckily Naruto was able to avoid this by getting out of the snake's grasp. So then Naruto and Schwar began to fight, and in the process, Naruto got hit multiple times, but not enough to actually stop him, and eventually Naruto creates a sand dome, and while he was in the dome, the snake wrapped around the dome. And with Naruto being able to see the walls start to cave in, so he began to turn all of his sand into kunais, and he began to stab the snake. But this time, the snake didn't let go. So while Naruto was distracted, Schwar ran to Naruto as fast as he could, and before he could react, Schwar ran at Naruto, and he wrapped himself around Naruto, making him unable to make a shield to protect himself. And seeing this, Naruto tried to grab a kunai, but when he tried, Orochimaru moved himself, so he couldn't grab anything from his bag, and he couldn't move his arms. And with this time, Orochimaru lifted up Naruto's shirt, and when he looked at Naruto's stomach, he saw both of the seals, and seeing that Naruto was already strong even though he has one extra seal, he decided to put another seal on Naruto, which made him fall unconscious, and seeing no more use for him, Schwar threw Naruto off the branch they were currently standing on, and seeing that the fall would have killed him, Sakura threw a kunai, which was able to catch onto Naruto's clothes, and it made him attached to a tree. Then Sakura began to shout to Sasuke to do something, since he hasn't done anything except watch since the fight began, and after some talking, Sasuke got filled with determination, and he began to fight Schwar, and after some time, he used a dragon fire technique, which hit Schwar head on, and that made Sasuke believe that he had melted him. But when the smoke was gone, Sasuke and Sakura saw Schwar standing tall as if nothing happened. But when they were able to see him clearer, they see that Schwar's face was almost completely melted off. But where Schwar's face was melted, another face was revealed, revealing it to be Orochimaru. And seeing as he must go now, Orochimaru extended his neck, and he bites Sasuke on the shoulder. And when Orochimaru lets go of the place he bit, there is now a weird mark. Then Orochimaru goes to leave, but right before he left, he wishes Sasuke luck on his future endeavors. Then in the blink of an eye, Orochimaru disappears, and when he was gone, Sasuke passed out, leaving Sakura to get both of her unconscious teammates. And after some time, Sakura was able to find a place to hide, and she placed traps in the area. And when she was done with that, she healed up her teammates the best she could, but eventually Team Dosu appeared, and they challenged Sasuke to a fight, but since he was still knocked out, it wasn't possible. So Sakura tries her best to use the trap she laid earlier to protect her and her teammates, but Team Dosu was able to make it through them with ease. They then go to attack Sakura, but before they could actually hit her, Rock Lee appears and he begins to fight them, but after some time he tries to use the front lotus, which she was able to hit and it caused some damage, but the attack didn't do as much as he wanted, and the drawback from the attack was too much, so he was unable to move his body for a short time after that attack. And taking advantage of this, Team Dosu attacks Lee until he gets knocked unconscious. They then go to attack Sakura again, but after some fighting, Sakura gets defeated, and she gets her hair grabbed by Kin, who starts to insult her, telling her she's weak. And seeing this as her only way out, Sakura grabbed a kunai from her bag, and she cut the hair that Kin was holding, allowing her to be free. And the first thing she did after being free was attack Zaku, and after slashing him a couple of times with her kunai, she pins him to the ground. But after some time, Zaku was able to overpower her, and when he did, he beat up Sakura until she eventually bled from her head. But before he could hit her again, Team 10 appears to help Sakura, and they start to attack Team Dosu. And after some time, Team Guy appears and they help since they want to help their fallen comrade. But before the group could defeat Team Dosu, Sasuke woke up, and when he did, he began to look around the area, and eventually he came across Sakura, who was injured. So he asked who hurt her, and in response, Zaku raised his hand and he told him he did it. And hearing this, Sasuke ran at him, and before he could react, he was able to get behind Zaku, and he began to pull on his arm. And originally, he was going to rip off Zaku's arms completely, but seeing all of this, Sakura ran to Sasuke and she told him to stop, so Sasuke stops. But by this point, both of Zaku's arms were dislocated. Sasuke then turned his attention to Dosu, but before he could actually get to him, Sakura pleaded for Sasuke to stop, and after some time, the curse mark began to shrink, making Sasuke fall to the ground. Dosu then quickly picked up his two teammates and left. and after some time all the teams left except for Team 7, and a couple of hours later Naruto finally woke up not knowing anything about what happened. Okay, so now we skip a couple of days, and the discussion about foraging the scroll doesn't happen since Naruto feels like it would be a bad idea. So while Naruto and Sakura were at their camp, Kabuto appears in front of them, and he tells them that he got separated from his team, so he asks would they allow him to join them for a short while. And hearing this, Sakura and Naruto were hesitant since they didn't know if it was a trap, and seeing that they were hesitant, Kabuto pulled out some cards he showed them before the exams, and he told them that he was able to get new info. And hearing this, Naruto asked what their specialties were, and after some discussion they eventually get to Gaara, and after some talking, Naruto learns that Gaara is like him, so he knows he has to be prepared to fight an enemy stronger or equal to him. And when they were done talking, Sasuke appeared, and he asked why was there another person at their camp. So the two then take Sasuke away, and they began to tell him what the situation was. And after a couple of minutes, they decided it was okay for him to join them. So they then came up with a plan to get their second scroll during the night, since they were planning on taking a scroll while the enemy teams were asleep. So now we skip to that night, and when everything was ready, they ran around the forest trying to find a team with the other scroll. But after around half an hour, they felt like they weren't going anywhere, and they felt like they were just going in one giant circle multiple times. And when they figured this out, they stopped and they tried to come up with a way out. But while they were talking, a group of clones of the person Sasuke fought at the beginning of the forest of death came out of the ground. And after some fighting, Team 7 and Kabuto figured out that the clones were not physical. So Naruto made around 25 shadow clones, with 3 of them turning into Sasuke, Sakura, and Kabuto. And the clones Naruto just made attacked the other clones, while the original 4 hid under a tree. And after a couple of hours, the enemy team assumed that Team 7 was tired, so they came out of hiding. And when they did, Naruto undid all of the clones, and the originals came out of their hiding spot. The two groups then began to fight, but during the fight, Naruto tried to create a wall of sand, but when he tried, it was harder to do, and before he got attacked, he was able to create a sand wall, but it was only at half strength. And Sasuke, whenever he tried to mold his chakra, would feel an intense pain throughout his entire body. But even with these two weakened, after around 10 minutes, Team 7 was able to win the fight. And when they were able to get the team scroll, they ran to the central tower, and after a couple of minutes of running, they finally get there, and when they do, they split off from Kabuto since his team was waiting there for him. And when they entered the tower, they were told to open both scrolls at the same time in the next room over. And when they opened the scrolls, a poop of smoke came out of the two, and when the smoke clears, they see Iruka, who then congratulated them for making it so far. And after some talking, he tells them to go into the next room, and when they walk in, they see Team 10, 8, Guy, Dosu, and the Sand Shinobi asleep. And that's where I'm going to leave the what if. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time on Something Z.